Pointe-Saint-Charles resident Stephanie Labelle stood in front of council at City Hall earlier this week and made her case about the construction of a water pipe affecting her and fellow residents on Grand Trunk Street. The construction has been going on for years. It has caused a ton of traffic, noise, dust, limited parking, all factoring into the restlessness of residents. And that feeling of restlessness, it boiled over at City Council. Have a listen here to Stephanie Labelle speaking, asking a question at City Council, and listen to the emotion in her voice.
C'est plus de 4 ans, je suis désolée, mais c'est inacceptable. C'est pas 4 mois, c'est 4 ans.
So there you have Stephanie Labelle. It's not 4 months I'm talking about here. It's 4 years with the tears in her eyes as she pleads with City Council. Now, Maja Vodanovic is from the Montreal Executive Committee in charge of waterworks for the Executive Committee. She's on the line. Maja, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Elias.
So the emotion there, it boils over, it goes to council. First things first, when a citizen comes to you and is in that state, how does it feel?
I feel for her. I feel so much for her. I stepped out of the council chambers to go and sit with her on the steps. I felt like we were in high school. I went out and I said, what's wrong and how can we help and what went wrong? I really wanted, because, I had the portrait of the waterworks and I knew what went wrong and what was going on, but to get the person that lives with it every day, it's a different story, like she's lived through this. So we learned, I spent a lot of time with her, and I think I'm going to meet with her on Monday with the mayor of Sud-Ouest, with Benoit Doré, and with the people in charge of the project at the water department. And we're going to talk to them, talk to the citizens, and give them more information of why
what went wrong.
This happened.
What went wrong here?
Many things went wrong. The construction site is 2 years late. So, and when we have a contract with a private entrepreneur, there's clauses in our contract that for every day that is delayed, there's penalties. So you can imagine how terrible this is for the person doing the work. Also, it's penalties over penalties because there were things that were done that were not complying to our laws and our regulations. For instance, the first thing that was the worst is the membrane that they had to put in the pipe, which is a very large pipe that brings water to a lot of people in the area. Well, it had to be done right, and we have inspectors on the site, and they said, well, the pipe did not conform to our regulations. They had to redo the job. So they, by the time they had to order another membrane, and that took time. And then once they put the other membrane in, there was other nonconformities. Mm-hmm. And the city says that this is the toughest construction site that they have right now for the water department. It's really like a continuous back and forth with the entrepreneur on the site.
Was there anything about where the parts came from? I may be wrong on this one. I seem to recall reading a La Presse piece this week where they mentioned a part was coming from the UAE, the United Arab Emirates.
Yes,
right.
Yes, it was the first time somebody. I think I don't know the exact details, and I'm pretty sure this is going to go to court, possibly. I don't know, but I know it's there's so much cost involved and so much sadness and strife, but it's not going to be settled very easily.
Yeah. But should we ever?
The membrane that did come from a country that it doesn't usually produce, that we don't usually get, and so. But in my I don't want to comment because it's probably going to go to court.
Okay, so we don't have to comment on like the specific of this pipe or whatever. But there's been a couple of stories. It was 2 weeks ago. There was the story about the toilets, the public toilets, right? And they're all out of service basically, and the parts come from Italy. We can't get the parts. Here's a pipe that's coming from halfway around the world. Don't you think? And I know there was a problem on Notre Dame a few months ago with a door, and we couldn't get the millimeters versus the inches right. I don't know if that has to do with going from outside of Montreal to get a part like that. maybe we should say, just in general, all of our parts, everything we get needs to come from local or regional places that we can have easy access to?
Yes, I think, that is one of the criteria. That is one of the main criteria, but sometimes the part just doesn't exist, or nobody does it in Quebec, and sometimes we have to go overseas. I mean, we had to have something like some kind of submarine to go into the pipes, to see for defaults, and nobody could do it here. So we bought one from Europe, so it depends. Like, we try to buy stuff from here, but I think the membrane, I think it is the contractor who ordered it from another country, not the city. Like, we we give out a contract, and then the one that runs the construction site, well, he orders all the parts. He's in charge, So that's,
okay.
See, it's not always just our fault.
So let me ask you this, because the residents here, they want compensation. Yeah. And to me, if you ever had a case, a case where the residents deserve something, right? Because listen, construction happens everywhere. Everyone's dealt with it, but not 4 years like this. What do you say to their calls for compensation?
Well, I spoke to Miss LaBelle, and what she's asking for, I find reasonable, and then the way she's put it, and we will talk to our legal department if we can put that into, if this ever goes into court, that the grief and the quality of life that was affected, because it directly affected their quality of life for so long, and not just, it cost everybody more, but not just the cost. It's the dérangement, the nuisance of all of it, the strife, the noise. Noise affects you as well. So we'll see how we can incorporate that. We're discussing it with the legal department.
What do you tell the citizens here that might be worried that the only way they'll get satisfaction or success fighting against City Hall is if they show up to City Hall and they're crying because of 4 years of something?
Well,
how do you make sure that someone is heard 3 months in, 6 months in, when there's a big problem?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that this construction site will be over. It's going to be over, and we really hope so, in 2 months. So it's almost, we're at this last stretch. So had Mrs. LaBelle come or not, it would still have finished. But what I take away from this is that, and specifically from a longer conversation with Ms. LaBelle, is that we definitely need to communicate more on what's going on a construction site with the citizens, because we have an inspector that's on site that is supervising, but he doesn't necessarily tells everything to the mayor of the borough. He talks to the people who he's working for, and to the water services that are centralized. And they don't necessarily know if, it's probably not on their radar that they also have to talk to the citizens. And sometimes it's the actual contractor who's doing the work who has the responsibility to send out information to the residents. So that's something that I think we definitely need to clear up. And somebody has to be responsible on the site to make sure that all the communication is going well. That if the person the person who's doing the work has to send it out, well, the inspector has to make sure that it was sent out. Yeah. And if,
Maja?
And do a follow-up, that the city knows, that the borough mayor knows, so that the citizens can always be kept informed. I think that is a key element that I learned from this experience. But,
Maja, we do have to leave it there. I want to thank you very much for coming on. Have a good weekend.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.
Maja Vodanovic, Mayor of Lachine, and on the Executive Committee responsible for water infrastructure.